that in a ruling on no case submission, the ruling is not supposed to be lengthy. At the end of the day, my lordship gave a very lengthy ruling, and without evaluating properly the duties we have outlined for the prosecution to establish, my lord held in his ruling that the prosecution has established a prima facie case that warrants us to enter a defense. That is new learning to me. It does not conform to the law as we know it and the requirements or justification for a no case submission ruling. Upon review of that particular ruling and the circumstances preceding this particular or culminating into the proceedings of today, more so the antecedents of this case and the other two sister cases that is pending before his lordship, particularly the one that has been decided by my lord in the civil aspect of this criminal trial, we felt that it is imperative at this stage that we consult with the defendant to decide appropriately. Happily, the defendant was on the same footing, and he informed the court that putting into cognizance the fact and the circumstances culminating into today's proceedings, that it is our honest belief that another judge ought to try or attempt to try, or another judge ought to decide this matter going forward. It is the honest belief that all of these facts have shown that this court has a predetermined purpose as far as this case is concerned. It was on that basis that the defendant applied that another judge should hear this matter moving forward. We agreed with the defendant that at this juncture, this matter ought to be transferred back to the CJ for reassignment to another judge, which is the appropriate thing to do in a matter of this nature. His lordship has asked us to come with a proper and a formal application so that parties can proffer argument on the date that such a motion will come on. We will consult further amongst ourselves, the legal team, and with the defendant, and come back before his lordship. Although his lordship imposed a date, which was the 19th of May 2026, and we informed his lordship that on that date we are built to appear in two separate trials before this same court and before judges who are even senior to his lordship, Justice Umar. But his lordship still proceeded to adjourn the matter despite our registering our displeasure and non-availability for that day to him in open court. We also reviewed that particular aspect of this issue and respond accordingly. However, whatever it is, just yesterday, the NBA issued a statement condemning the eagerness of state institutions, particularly those with prosecutorial powers, to, at the inkling of politically exposed persons, consistently be in a hurry to charge Nigerians under the obnoxious Cybercrimes Act 2026 as amended, particularly Section 24 thereof. The NBA noted, like we've always submitted and insist upon, that charges of this nature has an effect, a sizzling and a chilling effect on the right of Nigerians to critique those in government. We are now at a crossroad in this country where the government has decided to impugn on the rights and liberties of Nigerians, where the government has decided to abandon governance. And whenever any Nigerian has the temerity to challenge such an action, the state actors would hurriedly arrest such a critic and charge them to court. This is not democracy. In a country where the government has not implemented its budget for the past 3 years, in a country where Nigerians are being kidnapped daily, in a country where there is no infrastructural development to show for the humongous funds that this government has budgeted for those activities and jobs, in a country where Nigerians pay more for darkness than they pay for lights, in a country where a court just convicted a former minister of power for stealing over 33.5 billion naira at the expense of the Nigerian people. When Nigerians now complain about these injustices and the gravity of this very serious national question, the state actors try to use the instrumentalities of state apparatus, using the same taxpayers' monies that were budgeted or should be budgeted for infrastructural development to hang and to deprive such persons from the right to so speak. Is this the democracy that Nigerians elected and voted for? Is this the democracy that Nigerians are yearning for? Why would the government be in a hurry to condemn and charge to court those who simply ask that governance should be for the people? Another clear case is the case of our comrade brother, Justice Crack. Justice Crack simply exposed corruption as far as military funding and expenditures are concerned, as relates to the feeding and the allowances given to these soldiers. In a Senate crimes, the officers responsible for this feeding and for the welfare of the soldiers would have been summoned to explain what happened to the humongous monies that were budgeted for those feeding. They never did. The authorities went after the same person, the whistleblower, who should have been honored, given a national honor for exposing these ills in governance. And the same DSS, who has no prosecutorial powers under any law in Nigeria, is the same institution that was vested with the right to file a charge against such a Nigerian citizen. There was no investigation, there was no investigation report, none whatsoever. The army simply kidnapped this young man, tortured him, and handed him over to the DSS to prosecute.
To cover up their crimes.
To cover up the atrocities that this young man has brought to the fore. What was Mr. Omoyele's issue in this matter? They are not comfortable with the fact that he speaks truth to power and he challenges state institutions to be responsible and to be accountable to the Nigerian people. I think it is very important that beyond the rhetorics of condemnation and issuance of press statements, all hands must be on deck to ensure that we hold state actors accountable. Nigeria is not a police state. Nigeria is a democracy governed by constitutionalism and rule of law. We should never surrender the liberties that our forefathers fought so hard to attain from the colonial era. What we practice in this country is neocolonialism, modern-day slavery of the Nigerian people. That must stop. Nigerians must demand accountability and an end to this impunity in high places. Nigerians should stop being slaves in their country. Enough is enough. Nigeria is for every one of us. Thank you.
Revolution. Yeah.